Last week, we talked about something big, the moment when the world finally started catching up to Taiwan's reality. AI weaponization, espionage networks, energy pressure points, and all the things that Taiwan has been living with for many years, they're suddenly becoming breaking news for everyone else. And this week, well, it almost feels like the world took that realization and immediately turned around. Of course, that's not the case because, these international geopolitical shifts happen over time. But it just so happens this week that we have quite a lot of headlines that make Taiwan say, okay, it seems like now you need us to move faster after you realized those things, especially coercion from China. On the economic side, everyone wants our chip industry, our engineers, our know-how, our supply chain stability. On the defense side, our partners want us deeper in first island chain planning, investing more bases, more missiles, more regional deterrence. And on the democratic front, other countries want to borrow our disinformation defenses because their own systems are hitting the limits. It's a strange kind of compliment and a heavy one. When Taiwan succeeds, the world sees us as a solution for their problems. But when crises loom, the world also sees us as part of their strategy. And hopefully, they will come to our rescue. So this week, Taiwan looks a little more like a country being pulled in every direction at once. But here's the twist, that we can't just be reacting. We have to set our own standards, our own course as well. Taiwan announced a massive AI budget designed around the priorities of the country, not anyone else's. Taiwan doubled down on vocational talent and human skills that AI can't replace. And Taiwan pushed ahead on the T-Dome air defense shield, which arguably is something that arises from international needs, but this is a doctrine shaped by our geography, not necessarily Washington's or Tokyo's. And we held firm on political autonomy because if Taiwan can't protect its own democratic boundaries, then none of the other decisions matter. So yes, Taiwan is being pushed and pulled by larger forces, but Taiwan is learning how to absorb that pressure without losing its direction. Hi, you're listening to Beyond the Reefs, a show produced by Radio Taiwan International. Here we talk about socio-economic issues that are faced by Taiwan and their broader impact around the world beyond the reefs of this island nation. Taiwan and the Czech Republic, or Czechia, held a semiconductor resilience forum this week, part of their joint Supply Chain Resilience Center, SCRC Center. Deputy Foreign Minister François Roux said recent shocks from COVID to shipping disruptions showed how fragile the world's tech supply chains are. And Czech officials said that many countries now admit privately Europe depends heavily on Taiwan's semiconductor ecosystem, and that dependency is growing. Czech Republic Representative Dave Steinke noted that visits to Honghai and other companies show how robotics, AI, and automation all rely on components that flow through Taiwan. The SCRC is now entering its second year, with plans to expand into policy dialogues, resilience research, and exchanges among semiconductor regulators. Charles University will host a semiconductor roundtable at the Czech Parliament in March, inviting Taiwanese experts. That's a move that deepens Taiwan's role in Europe's high-tech planning. This is the first big, quote, pull on Taiwan this week. The world wants its chips, that's for sure, and countries are getting more open about it. Europe is racing to build local chip lines, but the truth is very simple. The EU consumes 20% of global semiconductors and produces under 10%. That gap won't close anytime soon. So when the Czechia talks about the democratic supply chain resilience, what they really mean is we need Taiwan, and we need Taiwan supply chains that is not from China. Taiwan's fabs, the engineers, the speed, its reliability, it's all needed. And honestly, this, I guess, isn't exactly a compliment. It's a signal of Taiwan's value, but also means we're being pulled into everyone else's industrial strategies. Everyone wants to plug into Taiwan because they know if Taiwan falters, their own industries collapse. But I suppose it's okay to have partnerships based on dependency. And this is the burden of being essential, right? The world sees Taiwan as the answer to its shortages, and that pressure is now part of Taiwan's everyday reality, but that's also a leverage. The U.S. China Economic and Security Review Commission, the USCC, released a new recommendation urging Taiwan to help finance upgrades to Philippine bases and Japan's Southwest Island facilities. These sites are part of the first island chain, the front line of the U.S. and allied deterrence planning. The report also warns that China's ability to blockade Taiwan is improving quickly, with PLA air and maritime activity rising sharply. The commission argues that including Taiwan in ally base improvements would strengthen regional readiness and send a clear deterrent signal. Foreign Minister Lin Jialong said the recommendations carry serious weight and reflect how Taiwan's security increasingly overlaps with Japan and the Philippines. He said deeper economic integration with Japan is also a priority, possibly moving toward a common market in the future. Let's hear from Taiwan Plus.
Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Jialong says there is potential for more formal security agreements with neighboring countries. Lin says Taiwan is not exploring a formal security treaty with Japan, but he says more frequent exchanges and cooperation are possible. When asked about how Taiwan could support Japan during its ongoing diplomatic spat with China, he said Taipei would continue to strengthen bilateral ties with Tokyo. Lin also highlighted Taiwan's strategic position along the first island chain, a string of territories that include Japan, the Philippines, and parts of Malaysia, which blocks much of China's access to the open ocean. For more on Taiwan's growing regional engagement and cooperation, our reporter Leary Isiano spoke with Jia Yen-chong from the National University of Singapore.
How has Taiwan's regional engagement, that's countries like Japan, the Philippines, ASEAN nations, changed in recent years, especially in the last year under President Lai?
Taiwan has always engaged quietly in an unofficial manner. Apparently, there has been more conversations with Japan and the Philippines in particular. A lot of this has to do with increasing concern about PRC pressure, on the so-called First Island chain that could affect the interests of all these parties.
Do you anticipate, given the tensions between Japan and China, China and the Philippines, any changes to Taiwan's security cooperation with regional neighbors, especially in the absence of formal diplomatic ties between Taipei and Manila and Taipei and Tokyo?
A lot of this has to do with the recognition on the part of the Philippines that geographically, they're right next to Taiwan. Any instability, in Taiwan could quickly spill over. Likewise, I think Taiwan realizes that with the Philippines just to its south and the rising tensions in the South China Sea, any escalation could easily move north as well. A similar logic applies to Japan. So these considerations have driven them to be a lot, Manila and Tokyo and Taipei, to be a lot more aware of each other and a lot more aware of the need to at least understand what each other's positions are. Lots of things don't need formal diplomatic ties. So Taipei and Tokyo have had long-standing, close but unofficial ties. Same thing with Washington. Ties with the Philippines have only more recently been revitalized.
What do you see as likely indicators of future shifts in security policy in the region?
It's a matter of interest, right? It's a matter of wanting to keep themselves and their interests safe, and there seems to be reason to look at what each other are doing more so now than ever. And indicators would possibly be more robust and sophisticated forms of coordination. If the parties, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, speak with each other not just bilaterally, but on a multilateral basis. Perhaps if they bring in other actors that have deep interest in the region as well. The coverage of the missiles and also equipment, aircraft, etc., overlap suggests that there is a recognition that having an extended forward line of defense may be important, and that may mean that Taiwan features more in Japanese and Filipino considerations.
So that story is the second poll, despite the very celebrative tone from our Foreign Minister Lin Jialong. This is the message. Our defense partners want more from us. More spending, more participation, more regional commitment. To be fair, it's not unreasonable. Taiwan sits in the middle of the first island chain. Any conflict here impacts Japan, the Philippines, and U.S. forces around the region. But it also brings pressure. Once you're seen as a key link in a defense network, your partners expect you to step in, step up, and sometimes pay for projects beyond your borders. And this is where Taiwan's position gets complicated. Cooperation is good, alignment is good, but Taiwan can't just absorb everyone else's defense priorities wholesale. It still needs a strategy shaped by its geography, its vulnerabilities, and its threats. The world wants Taiwan to spend more, but Taiwan has to make sure that money goes towards Taiwan's survival, not just broader regional plans. And on to another security and defense related story. French President Emmanuel Macron recently praised Taiwan's disinformation defense system during a debate on democracy and algorithmic manipulation. He said Taiwan's experience as a democratic, bordering, hostile, authoritarian state is worthy of copying in France. Taiwan's foreign minister thanked Macron and said Taiwan is eager to deepen cooperation with like-minded partners on information warfare, transparency, and democratic resilience. Macron noted Taiwan's ability to withstand massive disinformation attacks from China, calling it a valuable model for Europe's own information security challenges. This is the third poll. Actually, let's call it the 2.5 poll. Other democracies want Taiwan's disinformation defenses, and honestly, who can blame them? Taiwan has been dealing with algorithmic propaganda for a decade, long before Europe felt the full force of it. But again, this praise comes from pressure. Once Taiwan becomes the model, partners will expect us to export tools, training frameworks, and maybe even personnel. And it's flattering, but it's also quite demanding, especially when Taiwan is still under nonstop cognitive attacks itself. And this is the pattern for the week. Taiwan is being treated like both a frontline and a toolkit. Countries want its tech, its defense cooperation, and now its information security playbook. It's all positive, but also means that Taiwan needs to carry the responsibility far bigger than our size and needs to consider whether it's at capacity. Now, this is also possibly why President Lai Ching-te has decided to propose the largest defense bill Taiwan has ever seen.
President Lai Ching-te has confirmed the details of a proposed special defense budget aimed at countering China's threats.
预计在未来8年 2026到2033年投入1兆2500亿元的经费，来建构包括打造台湾之盾、建构分层防御、高度感知、有效拦截的先进防空系统。
Lai laid out those plans at the presidential office on Wednesday after convening a top-level national security meeting. The president said Beijing is preparing to invade Taiwan by 2027 and that he plans to raise the country's combat readiness by then. Defense Minister Wellington Koo joined Lai at the press conference, saying Taipei is ready to pick up the pace with Washington, its biggest security backer.
借台美共同研发及采购合作，加速获得国军迫切需要的武器与弹药，并导入新兴军事科技，提升作战能力。
Taiwan is still waiting on billions of dollars worth of weapons deliveries from the U.S., with several procurement projects facing delays.
A $40 billion special defense budget, the largest Taiwan has ever proposed. President Lai Ching-te on Wednesday unveiled a new multi-year defense plan, running from 2026 to 2033. He says the budget will fund stronger air defense systems, investments in asymmetric warfare, and the creation of a China-free defense supply chain. The U.S. has welcomed the move. The de facto American embassy in Taiwan, several senators, and the House Foreign Affairs Committee all praised it, and Taiwan's foreign ministry expressed its thanks. But not everyone supports the plan. The main opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, says the proposal means taking on huge debt, and that it could risk provoking China. The proposal came a day after Lai published an op-ed in the Washington Post outlining his defense vision. Both the KMT and the opposition Taiwan People's Party criticized the move, saying he went straight to the international media before communicating the plan to the public at home. But some analysts say sharing the budget with international media is a way for Taiwan to show allies abroad it's willing to defend itself. And while the cabinet approved the budget on Thursday, China is continuing its gray zone pressure. Beijing's Taiwan Affairs Office, which handles cross-strait matters, responded to the budget plan, warning it could push Taiwan into a disastrous situation. Meanwhile, Taiwan's defense ministry reported spotting 17 Chinese military aircraft and 6 vessels operating near the country between Wednesday and Thursday morning. Despite some opposition to the budget, analysts say that strengthening Taiwan's defenses has become a rare point of consensus amid ongoing pressure from China.
So as you heard, that is the new direction. President Lai presided over the promotion ceremony for senior military officers this week as well and used this moment to push the same message. Taiwan's defense strategy needs to become faster, smarter, and harder to predict. He said recent equipment acquisitions, including the MY-82T Abrams tanks, the HIMARS long-range rocket systems, new reconnaissance platforms, and future unmanned systems are all accelerating the development of what we call the T-Dome, or the Taiwan Shield, Taiwan's layered, integrated air and missile defense shield. Lai praised officers working in readiness training, logistics, infrastructure planning, joint brigades, and political warfare counseling, saying their work reflects Taiwan's need for operational depth. He also stressed that with China's gray zone tactics constantly evolving, Taiwan cannot rely on old doctrines. Instead, the armed forces must innovate, adapt to new threats, and use Taiwan's geography to build a defense force capable of protecting national security and public welfare. And this is where Taiwan draws the line, yes, or at least looks like it. Our allies want us to go deeper in first island chain planning, but Taiwan has to build the defense that it needs first, not just the one that others prefer. And the T-Dome is exactly that, a homegrown doctrine built around its geography and its threats. Most missile attacks on Taiwan would come from the west, most gray zone pressure by air and sea. Taiwan has one of the highest population densities in the world, meaning that any strike would hit civilians immediately, and that's why layered air defense matters so much. A RAND study once estimated that Taiwan would need to intercept hundreds of missiles in the first hour of a conflict to stay operational. So while partners push us to spend more, T-Dome is Taiwan saying that, well, we need to spend in ways that protect Taiwan first. Missiles, mobility, resilience, they're not abstract strategies. Sometimes they can sound like just words on the list, but they are survival choices. Now, our final story today is not so much about hardware or even software. It's about something that's a lot less concrete. So it's been going on for a while, and let me just tell you the story. So Interior Minister Liu Shifang responded to renewed debate over Taiwan's Nationality Act after a controversial dismissal case involving a naturalized Taiwanese official who holds a Chinese passport still holds this nationality, and Liu said the law is clear. Public officials must hold single allegiance to the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, and the rule applies to all foreign nationals equally. On the other hand, opposition lawmakers from the KMT, that's the Kuomintang, and the TPP proposed easing these restrictions specifically for Chinese spouses, arguing that for a tailored exemption. Liu rejected that idea, saying the law cannot be changed to carve out exceptions for one country, as that would undermine consistency and create political divisions. She emphasized that Chinese spouses living in Taiwan enjoy the same daily rights and protection as all new immigrants. The only difference is eligibility for public office, which comes with constitutional allegiance requirements. This story feels smaller than defense and semiconductor headlines, but it hits the core of Taiwan's autonomy and identity. If Taiwan can't control who holds public power, or rather, if the people who hold public power can be influenced by other allegiances or other countries, then Taiwan can't control the decision that shapes its future. Right? The pressure here isn't coming from Washington or Brussels. It's domestic, it's emotional, and it's political. But the stakes are real. Public offices come with access, authority, and influence. Countries around the world, including the US, Canada, Australia, they all restrict dual nationals for certain offices tied to national security, and Taiwan should be no different. So here's the bigger point. If Taiwan starts making exceptions for China, even well-intentioned ones, it chips away the very boundary that keeps Taiwan's political system independent and autonomous. And it can work with partners, cooperate with allies all at once. But if it doesn't protect its political autonomy, then none of these choices will truly be, well, Taiwan's. And so these are the bigger stories shaping Taiwan last week, and a lot of them certainly connect to some of the stories we were telling about the week before. So if you'd like to find out what were some of the conclusions we came to last week, go ahead and listen to last week's episode. But this is, episode 60 here on Beyond the Reefs. I'm Joey Zhao. Thank you for listening, and I hope to catch you again next week here on Radio Taiwan International.